In my last video, I outlined one of the most important and useful insights that I derived from reading The Gulag Archipelago by Alexander Solzhenitsyn. And if you want to go view that video first, you can click the pop-up banner here to go and watch it now. In this video, I'm going to try and do something similar with a distinct but related idea derived from the same book. As you may have guessed from the title of this video, it surrounds the idea of evil and how it manifests itself in the world. As you're most likely aware, the Soviet Union was a totalitarian state with a dictator at its head, and we might like to pile all of the responsibility for the evils that occurred within that regime at the feet of that dictator. We might like to say that the individuals in the society had no responsibility to speak out or to act because their fear of retribution was completely justified. But I believe that the idea that they held no responsibility at all is slightly naive. There are people who believe that all of the atrocities which occurred in the Soviet Union happened under the arm of Joseph Stalin, and only during his reign from 1934 until 1953. Stalin was just one big tyrant. He controlled the entire state just from his evil machinations. Maybe we're slightly less naive than that, and we believe that not only was Stalin evil, but the people who surrounded him were also evil. The people who made up the party, or the Bolsheviks, so the Russian Communist Party, the KGB, formerly the Cheka, and the NKVD, which was the Soviet secret police, the camp guards in the Gulag, and all of those people who worked and conspired with Stalin. Or maybe communism was the great evil, and it was the possession of the people by this fundamentally evil, hateful, and resentful ideology that was the source of the horrors of the Soviet Union that caused the tens of millions of deaths. In my previous video surrounding the Gulag Archipelago, I discussed how communism is not the noble and moral ideology that it purports to be. This is only a surface level interpretation of it. If you delve deeper into it, it's fundamentally based on resentment. If you want to go and view that video, you can click the I in the top right hand corner. There should be a link to it there. I think we are getting closer to the truth here, but many people, and this includes myself in the past, and I actually still catch myself having thoughts such as these. Many people think that it could never be them. They're just too good or too moral to participate in these types of actions. In fact, there are many people who never really consider the reality of evil at all. And while you can remain shielded from it temporarily, you can't remain shielded from it forever. In your life, evil will present itself to you. It is coming to you, no matter what. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, and probably when you least expect it. I think it is incredibly important to know the true nature of evil, and that is the insight that I gained from the Gulag Archipelago that I want to discuss in this video. If evil comes to you and you aren't prepared, it can be truly detrimental. I think it's incredibly important to understand the ideas that I'm going to talk about that Solzhenitsyn has outlined in his book. There are way too many people in this world who don't even think that evil exists, or never ever think about it ever. So how does Solzhenitsyn characterize evil in his book? I'm going to begin with a quote, a very famous quote, which is also the title of this video, from his book. And it goes, "If only it were all so simple. If only there were evil people somewhere, insidiously committing evil deeds, and it were necessary only to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. But the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. And who is willing to destroy a piece of his own heart? Right, who is willing to accept such a terrible truth? Wouldn't you rather just associate everything that is wrong in the world, everything that afflicts you, with external things? Wouldn't you rather just associate the evils of the world with everything that isn't you? Some people even go as far as cursing the universe itself, cursing God in their pride. And this is what Cain does when he isn't accepted by God in the biblical story of Cain and Abel. I know I would certainly rather associate the evils of the world with external things. But we have to believe that it doesn't matter what we would rather do. What matters is what is best. And what do we know about what is best? I'm sure we can all think of a time when we did what we would rather do and the outcome was far from the best. It seems to me that this is one of the most extreme and fundamental cases of this idea. It's a lifelong struggle to accept the fact that the line dividing good and evil cuts right through our own heart. It's a lifelong quest and struggle, and one of the most difficult things that you can do in life. Insofar as I have been able to comprehend my proclivity to evil, and insofar as I have looked inward to find solutions to the problems which trouble me, my life has become better. Things have improved for me. Before I explain how I translated these ideas into practical strategies, and before I describe those practical strategies, I want to add another dimension to these ideas. So we are all capable of the terrible things that the most evil among us have done. I don't want to accept that, and I still haven't fully. But what about conscience and natural law and a universal conception of right and wrong? Solzhenitsyn tells us not to underestimate the power of the rational mind to generate justifications. Solzhenitsyn writes, "To do evil, a human being must first of all believe that what he is doing is good, or else that it's a well-considered act in conformity with natural law. Fortunately, it is in the nature of the human being to seek a justification for his actions." Macbeth's self-justifications were feeble, and his conscience devoured him. Yes, even Iago was a little lamb too. The imagination and the spiritual strength of Shakespeare's evildoers stopped short at a dozen corpses because they had no ideology. Ideology, this is what gives evildoing its long-sought justification and gives the evildoer the necessary steadfastness and determination. That is the social theory which helps to make his acts seem good instead of bad in his own and others' eyes, so that he won't hear reproaches and curses, but will receive praises and honours. You might ask, how does the ideology hold up after tens of millions of people have been killed? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know how you can think that you're for the poor even though you killed 15 million of the people who were poor. I don't know how this ideology holds up. Maybe your pride just chooses to ignore it. I found this quite interesting again in Solzhenitsyn's words. It is difficult to imagine the paternal pain which the visionary architect would have felt if he had witnessed in turn the bankruptcy of this great system of his. While he yet lived, it was shaken. It was giving off sparks. It was covered with cracks. But probably caution prevailed, and these things were not reported to him. Did Stalin see the full extent of the consequences of his actions? Could his ideology have justified it if he did? Would his pride have carried him through no matter what? Did he spiral downwards too far into the depths of evil? It seems clear to me that all the way up the hierarchy of the Soviet Union regime, each individual was justifying his own small role by this horrid ideology. Each and every individual abdicated the responsibility to tell the truth, and we can see how much impact one man's forthrightness in telling the truth had in Solzhenitsyn. Then again, I certainly don't think that I would have risked my life as he did. I would have been the same reprehensible liar and coward, and this is the key idea that I want to get across in this video. Why do I believe that this is such a key idea? Why do I believe that understanding this idea is useful to you in your life? In my previous video on the Gulag Archipelago, I explained why I believe that taking on individual responsibility is so important. In this video, I'm going to try and describe the benefits that I have found in at least trying to accept the fact of my proclivity to evil. It isn't something that we can deny. I think history has shown us that, and Solzhenitsyn has proved that to us. So the utility in recognizing that. You stop looking outward for someone or something else to blame for your problems. You stop being so prideful, and a little humility flows into your life. You start admitting that you were wrong instead of doubling down on all your bad decisions. You start to realize that there are things that you can do. There are things that you can change. You're not just a victim of the patriarchy, of society, of your boss, of your controlling girlfriend, your aggressive boyfriend, your peer pressuring friends. You're a victim of your evil machinations as well. And you can do something about that part. You realize that after all this time you spent cursing God, that maybe if you had made the proper sacrifices, you would have been accepted. Life isn't just good people and bad people. Evil people are not just victims of their environment, they're also victims of themselves. And this isn't just some old-fashioned pull yourself up by your bootstraps dogma. My priest at Mass says every Sunday, God, grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Unfortunately, we are all burdened with the terrible excesses of our environment, and some to a much greater degree than others. But if there's anything that I've learned in my short life so far, it's that we can do a hell of a lot to make a bad situation worse with our pride and lack of responsible action. Introspectivity is the key takeaway here, and I've spoken about this before, and I will no doubt speak about it again in the future, but a practical strategy, a habit that you can implement into your life to make these kind of changes and to concretize these ideas is to journal every night about 3 things that you did that were good, focusing on why you did them and what was going through your mind when you did them, and 3 things that could have been improved and could have went better, and do the same. What were you thinking in the moment when you did that? What were your intentions? And so if you do that every day, you try and improve the things that could be improved, and try and do the things that were good a little more often, then I truly believe that your life will improve massively. My life has improved massively as a result, and I would seriously recommend that you adopt this habit. That is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you found it useful. Thank you very much for watching, and God bless.